What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as the New York Giants have come down with their cuts as they've named the 53-man roster. Now, of course, this could change leading up into the season. There were a number of additions that the New York Giants made last year after they made their initial 53, and I expect, specifically when you look at the makeup of this roster, for the New York Giants to make another move or two before the season starts. For instance, they only carried 5 wide receivers. I'd be surprised if they don't go into the season with 6. And if that's the case, well, look for them to look out on the open market for some of the receivers I've talked about and possibly bring one in. Now, there were a number of surprise cuts with the New York Giants. We're going to go over the cuts first, and then we'll get into the players that, as of now, are a part of the New York Giants football team headed into the 2020 regular season. We'll start at the quarterback position. I think we all knew that Alex Tenney was probably being cut specifically when they brought in Cooper Rush, and they had 4 quarterbacks competing. Last year, the Giants decided to go with 3 quarterbacks. This year, they'll be going with 2. They also, in addition to cutting Tenney, decided to cut Cooper Rush. It'll be interesting to see if they bring Rush back on the practice squad, being that he's familiar with the playbook and he could probably help out Daniel Jones in the quarterback room. So I would expect that to be the case for Rush to make the practice squad. In addition to that, I'm trying to read off my notes, guys. Ryan Conley is the biggest shocker, and a lot of Giants fans are up in arms about it on Twitter. Conley, of course, had a pretty strong 4 games for the Giants last year before he went down with the injury with the ACL. And we'll see. Hopefully he gets to come back on the practice squad. The New York Giants drafted a ton of linebackers in this year's draft, so I can't say I'm that shocked. I'm surprised, but I'm not going to go wild about this. And I knew that this was a possibility due to the fact that he was coming off that ACL injury, and if the Giants didn't feel like he was fully recovered, and knowing that they invested a lot in the linebacker position in this year's draft, I'm not that shocked by it. Now, hopefully Conley gets back to 100% and maybe is able to show us something. We all heard about how good of a camp that Devontae Downs was having, and I'll get into all the guys that made the roster. It's surprising, but it's not crazy to me. In terms of the other cuts, Chris Slayton was also cut, a former draft pick of Dave Gettleman, and Chris Williamson, who was a 7th-round draft pick in this year's draft, did not quite make the roster, but that means 9 out of the 10 rookies will be making the 53-man squad, a lot of whom are linebackers, which kind of fills in for Ryan Conley. Other people that were released, Johnny Holton, the free agent wide receiver that we brought in, who I thought could have been a special teams contributor. Again, maybe they bring him back on the practice squad. Alex Bachmann, who had a fantastic training camp, did not quite make the team because, well, they only went with 5 wide receivers, which is a bit of a surprise. But like I said, expect them to go out there and potentially make a move and bring somebody in. But we'll see. Derek Dillon, Austin Mack, and Benjamin Victor were all cut or, didn't make the initial 53. Expect a lot of those guys to be on the practice squad. Tavian Feaster, the running back that we brought in, was also cut. Eric Tomlinson and Garrett Dickerson were both cut at the tight end position, so we're going to go with 3 going into the season. In terms of the offensive lineman, John Jalapio, who a lot of people suspect will be on the practice squad, from what I read, did not make the initial 53, which means Spencer Pulley did keep his job, even though it seemed as if that there was a high probability that Jalapio would make it due to contract. He was a lot cheaper than Spencer Pulley, but the Giants decided to stick with the guy they've had the entire season. Nico Lalos got cut, an undrafted free agent edge rusher. Eric Smith, Tyler Haycraft, Kyler Murphy also were cut, along with Dalen Mack, the interior defensive lineman. But the Giants did go with 6 defensive linemen. I thought they would go with 5. Josiah Tufufa got cut. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He did play a bit for the Giants last year. The linebacker, Grant Haley. The nickel corner was cut also by the New York Giants, along with Askew Henry from the XFL, Brandon Williams, Hardage, and a number of others, Carson Tinker. Now we're going to get into the guys that made the initial 53, and this could change, but this is what I gathered from all the guys that were cut. I tried to do my best to get all the names that did make this team. Like I said, at the quarterback position, the Giants went with 2. I actually like this. I like the fact they're going with 2. I hope they keep Cooper Rush on the practice squad, but I think the Giants need as many roster spots as they could get throughout this roster. Now, they left a lot of roster spots for the defense, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because the Giants want to show so many different looks. They probably want a couple of extra guys on the defensive side of the football. The running back was as we all expected. 4 guys made the team: Saquon Barkley, Dion Lewis, Wayne Gallman, and Elijah Penny, of course, the fullback. So no surprises there. The wide receiver was the biggest shocker. Now, C.J. Board, I'm not shocked, made this team. He was getting some great write-ups, towards the end. I thought it was down to him and Bachmann, for that last spot, or Benjamin Victor. They go with C.J. Board, but the surprise, like I said, was that they only went with 5. The top 4 we knew, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Corey Coleman, and Sterling Shepard were givens. But they only go with 5 wide receivers on the initial roster. But like I said, expect them to make a move. In terms of the tight end, I'm not too surprised here. I thought it was a possibility they could go with 4, being that I think they're going to have a lot of 2 tight end sets. They go with 3. The 3 that I think we all thought was going to make the team: Evan Ingram, Caden Smith, and Levine Toilolo. In terms of the offensive line, Andrew Thomas, I think he'll be starting. Will Hernandez, Spencer Pulley expect to be on the bench. I think Nick Gates will be the starting center, but both of them made the team, along with Cam Fleming, who I expect to be the opening day starting right tackle. Matt Peart, Kevin Zeitler, of course, will be the starting guard. I think Chad Slade made the team. I didn't see his name on any cuts. And Shane Lemieux. So a total of 9 offensive linemen. That's what I thought they would go with. It is a minimum of 8. So they went with 9 offensive linemen. The special teams we all knew: Graham Gano, Riley Dixon, and Casey Kreider will be the long snapper. In terms of the defense, the defensive line, like I said, they ended up going with 6. I'm kind of glad that McIntosh got to make the team. He's a guy that has a lot of potential. Former 5th-round pick of Gettleman in 2018. Him and Austin Johnson will be at the back end. At the top, B.J. Hill, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and, of course, Dalvin Tomlinson. Those top 4 guys, I think, will be the guys that are mainly in the mix. But, like I said, due to the fact that they're going to want a lot of versatility, I could see them using 2 interior defensive linemen in 4-3 sets, things like that. So they decide to go with 6 defensive linemen instead of 5. So instead of 6 receivers, they go with 6 defensive linemen. The linebackers, they brought on all the rookies: Blake Martinez, Tate Crowder, Cam Brown, Devontae Downs, Carter Coughlin, Kyler Fackrell, Lorenzo Carter, David Mayo, Marcus Golden, O'Shane Zimenez, and T.J. Brunson. I believe that's 11. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They went with 11 linebackers and left Conley off, which is the biggest surprise. But the only thing that makes sense to me for leaving Conley off, who I did read was looking good down the stretch, but he did sit out a lot of the camp. The Giants probably are not confident that he will be a part of this roster. Will be 100% going into the season. Only thing that makes sense to me, and of course, he has no ties to Joe Judge. In terms of the DBs going into the year: Corey Ballantyne, James Bradbury, Julian Love, Nate Ebner, Darnay Holmes, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, Sean Chandler, I believe, made the team, and Isaac Yadam, the cornerback that we just traded for. Of course, Xavier McKinney will be a part of this team. I think he'll probably be put on the IR, along with David Mayo. Mayo may not be put on the IR, but regardless, they probably won't be starting week 1. But overall, those are the names. And, of course, I'll be making a video looking at all the potential free agents that the New York Giants could be looking at, being that a ton of teams made cuts today. And I'm sure the Giants are going to scour the market and look for them to bring in 2 or 3 pieces. And looking at the roster, being that they only have 5 wide receivers, it leads me to believe that there's a strong possibility that the Giants could be in the market for one. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.